The first time I saw Commander Jake Morrison, he was eating something called a peanut butter sandwich in the corner of our Royal Combat Arena. Just sitting there, chewing. You have to understand, nobody sits in the Velkarian Royal Arena. You stand at attention. You kneel before the throne. You bow until your spine cracks. But this human? This absolute madman in his dirt-stained uniform? He was having lunch like he'd wandered into a cafeteria by mistake. My name is Princess Lyra of House Velkarian, third daughter of the Eternal Flame, guardian of the Southern Nebulas, and about 14 other titles that would bore you to tears. I'd challenged every warrior from 7 systems to single combat, and won every time. My collection of trophy weapons could fill a museum, and probably would after I died, because apparently that is what royal families do with your belongings. But I was bored. So incredibly, mind-numbingly bored. When the human delegation arrived for trade negotiations, my father, the Emperor, warned me to behave. Do you know what teenage alien princesses do when told to behave? Exactly the opposite. Within 10 minutes of spotting their security chief, I had issued a formal combat challenge. The human ambassador, a nervous woman named Director Hayes, nearly fainted. She stammered something about diplomatic incidents and interstellar relations while her assistant frantically scrolled through what I assumed was a digital panic manual. Commander Morrison just shrugged. Actually shrugged, like I'd asked him to pass the salt instead of fight to first blood in front of 3,000 spectators. Sure, why not, he said. Those 3 words. In that order. Like this was a casual Tuesday activity. My chief advisor, Lord Vexen, pulled me aside. His scales were turning purple with stress. Your Highness, please reconsider. We know nothing about human combat capabilities. Exactly, I grinned. That's what makes it exciting. The arena filled quickly. Word spreads fast when a princess does something potentially stupid. The glass dome overhead magnified the light of our twin suns, casting everything in shades of amber and gold. Betting pools opened immediately. The odds were not in Morrison's favor. 50-1 against him lasting 5 minutes. I wore my ceremonial armor, each piece forged from fallen meteors and blessed by our priests. My primary blade, Starfall, had tasted the blood of champions from a dozen worlds. I looked magnificent, terrifying, royal. Morrison arrived in his regular uniform. Worn boots, no armor, no visible weapon. He did roll his shoulders a bit, like he was warming up for a morning jog. You're not even going to put on armor? I called across the sand. Nah, he replied, popping his knuckles. Gets in the way. The crowd went silent. Even the betting stopped. This was either supreme confidence or supreme stupidity, and with humans, it was hard to tell which. The master of ceremonies, an ancient Velkarian named Throg who had presided over arena matches for 6 decades, raised his forearms. The challenge has been accepted. Combat will proceed until first blood, surrender, or incapacitation. Combatants, take your positions. I activated Starfall. The blade hummed, crackling with purple lightning that filled the air with the scent of ozone and danger. Very dramatic. The crowd loved it. Morrison reached behind his back and pulled out a knife. Just a knife. Maybe 8 inches long. It looked like something used to open packages, not fight a princess trained since infancy. That's it. I couldn't hide my disappointment. That's your weapon? Oh, this. He inspected it casually. Yeah, picked it up at a surplus store on Earth. Cost me $12. Pretty good deal. $12. Whatever those were. Throg's voice thundered across the arena. Begin. I lunged forward, Starfall slicing through the air in a flawless arc. Fast, precise, lethal. A move that had won me 17 consecutive matches. Morrison wasn't there. One moment, he was 5 meters away. The next, he was beside me, and I felt the cold edge of his absurd 12-buck knife resting against my throat. First blood, he said quietly. No gloating. Just fact. The arena exploded, not with cheers, but with shocked confusion. Lord Vexen looked ready to collapse. Director Hayes buried her face in her hands. The betting masters shouted at one another, convinced something illegal had occurred. I stood frozen, Starfall still crackling in my grip. The fight had lasted 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Morrison stepped back and lowered his knife. Good match, Your Highness. Solid form. Your opening strike was textbook perfect. How did you do that? My voice sounded smaller than I liked. He smiled, not mockingly, but kindly. Where I come from, we have a saying. It's not about the size of the weapon. It's about who's holding it. That was when I realized I hadn't challenged just any human. I had challenged a legend. And this was only the beginning. The aftermath was somehow worse than the actual fight. Lord Vexen was having what could only be described as a public meltdown. His scales had shifted from purple to a sickly green, a color that usually meant someone was about to be executed. Preferably me. The betting masters were yelling at one another in 7 different languages. Someone in the crowd actually threw a shoe onto the arena floor in protest. And Commander Jake Morrison? He was sliding his knife back into his belt like he had just finished cutting a sandwich. No one, absolutely no one, had ever drawn first blood on me before. Not once. Not in 347 official matches. My pride wasn't just wounded. It was bleeding out in the sand next to my dignity. That was a lucky strike, I announced loudly. Too loudly. You caught me off guard. Best 2 out of 3. Morrison raised one eyebrow. Just one. How did humans do that? Your Highness, the terms were first blood. We agreed. I am altering the terms. I snapped. Yes, sounding exactly like the spoiled brat I absolutely was being. Director Hayes finally found her voice. Commander Morrison, perhaps we should return to the negotiations and… No. I pointed Starfall at her, which in hindsight was incredibly rude. I demand a rematch. My honor requires it. My father's voice thundered across the arena. Lyra. Oh no. The full name. Emperor Davarin of House Velkarian descended from the royal observation deck, his ceremonial robes flowing behind him like liquid starlight. He looked furious, an expression I rarely saw. Usually, he settled for mild disappointment. Furious was new. Father, I can explain. You challenged a human warrior without researching his capabilities, he said, each word landing like a hammer. You assumed superiority based on past victories against opponents you understood. You displayed arrogance, recklessness, and an embarrassing lack of tactical awareness. The arena fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop from orbit. Morrison cleared his throat. Your Majesty, if I may, the princess fought with considerable skill. Her opening strike would have defeated 90% of opponents. She simply encountered someone from Earth's Special Operations community. Special Operations? I echoed. Oh no. Director Hayes muttered. Morrison scratched the back of his neck, suddenly looking almost shy. Before joining the diplomatic corps, I spent 20 years with Earth's Tactical Response Unit. Counterterrorism, hostage rescue. Fought in the Martian conflicts, the Titan Rebellion, and 3 tours in the outer colonies during the Raider Wars. With every sentence, Lord Vexen's color worsened. By the end, he looked moments away from liquefying. You are a professional soldier, my father said slowly. Not a diplomat. Retired professional soldier, Morrison corrected. Mostly retired. About 70%. I stared at him. You've been in real wars? Actual combat? People trying to kill you combat. More times than I can count. Lost track around year 5. My 347 victories suddenly felt smaller. I had fought nobles, trained warriors, opponents who followed rules and stopped at first blood. Morrison had fought people who wanted him dead and did not care how it happened. I want to learn, I said. Every eye turned toward me. I want Commander Morrison to teach me. Real combat. Not arena performance, actual fighting. The words rushed out. I've trained my whole life against predictable opponents. I want to learn how to fight someone who wants me dead. That's not really in my job description, Morrison began. I'll pay you, I interrupted. Any amount. I have access to the royal treasury. I don't need money. Then what do you need? He thought for a moment, then grinned. These negotiations last 6 weeks. Train with me every morning. If you land one solid hit on me before we leave, just one, I'll admit in writing that you're the better fighter. And if I fail, then you admit that maybe, even after 347 wins, the universe can still surprise you. The crowd murmured. My father looked thoughtful instead of angry. Lord Vexen had given up entirely and was sitting on the steps with his head in his hands. I deactivated Starfall and extended my hand. Deal. Morrison shook it. His grip was firm, calloused, and confident. Training starts tomorrow at dawn. Hope you're a morning person. I was not. Not even slightly. But as Commander Jake Morrison walked out of the arena, still eating that ridiculous peanut butter sandwich, I realized something. For the first time in years, I wasn't bored. And 6 weeks suddenly felt far too short. The real challenge was just beginning, and I couldn't wait. If this story entertained or taught you something, please like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us grow and bring you more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.